I'd like to start by asking everyone to try and remember their favorite item from childhood. For me, I think one of them was a Fisher-Price car that you pedaled with your feet. I remember the red doors and the yellow top. This car took me everywhere. World-class racetracks, through the jungle. I think I even went underwater at one point. Regardless of what this item was, a toy, a costume, maybe your mom's pans from the kitchen, these items were our best friends, and they took us to other worlds. They were our source of imagination. So let's relive this with a story about a little boy. There once was a little boy, and he stayed up way too late against his mom's wishes and watched Jurassic Park. Now, besides being scared, he fell in love with dinosaurs and instantly wanted to become one. So his mom went out and got him a dinosaur hat, and he spent all day stampeding around the house like a T-Rex. This little boy embodies what it means to have imagination. So we've all been this little boy, so what happened to our imagination? We realized the harsh reality of life, that people out there are judging us. A classmate of the little boy decided he would point out that little boys cannot become dinosaurs in real life. It only took one person to make one comment and our dreams were crushed. So we all decided we didn't want to be made fun of anymore, and it was time to grow up. So the little boy takes his hat, puts it in a box along with his imagination, puts it high on a shelf to sit in the dark in a dusty corner. We've all done this. We've all abandoned our imagination. It may be somewhere in a closet or even in the trash. So there's a common misconception among adults that you can't be a creative individual unless you're an artist, a writer, or an actor. Well, this is far from the truth. And in fact, anyone can become an artist as long as you have the right tools and the drive to do so. To prove this, I drew all of my own slides. I am an engineering and math major, so I'm far from being an artist. My slides are not perfect at all. And as you can see here, I have these very large impressionist lips. That was not done on purpose. So by sitting down with a pen, paper, and some dedication, I set out to try and prove that you can find your creativity as long as you have the drive to do so. I know not everyone wants to be an artist, but I think we can all agree that we would like to be a little bit more creative. It would really help in our day-to-day lives and careers. So I've adapted a list of kid tips from a book called The Imagineering Way: Ideas to Ignite Your Creativity. Now, keep in mind as I go through these tips that I don't want you to actually act like a kid. You probably wouldn't keep your job or make it through college. But it's more of a way of thinking and a way of attacking challenges. So the first tip is to look for wonder. Kids are always able to find the beauty and amazement in the smallest of things. So I encourage you, when you're working on a challenge, try and pay attention to the little details. Find the beauty in everything. For example, I know you can't see the detail on my tie, but these stripes are actually little ropes that are tied with knots. The little details make everything so much more interesting. The next is forced connections. Kids are able to relate seemingly unrelated things into new inventions that are just crazy, like for instance this hoverboard. When you're working on a task, I encourage you to try and find unrelated things, put them together, and you never know what you might come up with. And since practice makes perfect, we're going to do a little exercise using forced connections. You just went through the drive-thru at Starbucks, you have your drink, you're happy as a clam, and the worst thing possible happens. You drop your debit card in the dark abyss between your seat and your mid-console. What are you going to do? You don't have toothpick fingers, but you look around you and you have straws, paper clips, and chewing gum. But yeah, take the straws. I fasten them with a paper clip just to be super safe. And then put chewing gum on the end as an adhesive to get the debit card out. So congrats, you mastered forced connections. The next tip is to change hats. Kids are always approaching life with different roles. When you find yourself stuck in a task, I encourage you to look at the problem from a different perspective. An example of this would be engineers looking at things from an architect's point of view and architects looking at things from an engineer's point of view. Kids allow themselves to dream. As adults, we have kind of lost our dreaming powers along with our imagination. I encourage you to regain your ability to dream because some of the biggest doers are the big dreamers, like Walt Disney and Steve Jobs. Break the rules. Kids are always changing rules, adding players, moving boundaries while they play. Now, I'm not asking you to go against your advisors or your boss because that would just be a really bad idea, but be open to trying new things and finding creative alternatives. Kids play without boundaries. As adults, we're very wary of the impractical, and we have way too many bounds to really let our creativity flourish. I encourage you to try and find your ideas on the moon because some of the greatest ideas seem impractical at first. And the last is probably the most important. Make it fun. Kids, their sole purpose in life is to find fun. They don't want to be bored. I know in real life, in work and school, it's not always fun, but if you can find some spin on whatever you're working with that you find enjoyment out of, I promise your end product will be so much more creative and you'll find way more enjoyment in life. So what's the point? What am I asking you to try and think about? Well, like I said, I don't want you to act like a kid. We would get nothing done in the business world. But I do want you to try and regain your imagination and approach problems like you used to when you were a kid. Now, revisiting that little boy, we all know he grew up and abandoned his imagination and his dinosaur hat. But in time, he realized that life was no longer fun, and so he went back to his shelf, took down his box, took out his hat, and he's no longer afraid to wear it. He no longer lives with the fear of judgment. So keep your eyes out, because you might just see this man wearing his dinosaur hat. Speaking of time, I have an art class to get to, and thank you guys so much for listening to me, and I hope this talk helped unbox your imagination.